Well, hello, everybody, and happy Monday. I hope you're all having a fantastic Monday and you had a brilliant weekend. And those of you who joined us on Caleb's gathering on Saturday night, I hope you enjoyed that too. I thought it was really great and nice to have you all there. But before I bring beautiful Bryce on, I just want to give a shout out to the awesome people from SunKidz again, who, as you well know by now, are the sponsors of the show or shall I say, of many of the shows. And it's really great to have them. So SunKidz is celebrating its 11th wedding anniversary. Listen to me. Its 11th anniversary again. So check in the description because you're going to see the link for them, okay? And on the 11th anniversary, you're going to use, as it says there, celebrate SunKidz anniversary with exclusive offers. Code Happy Chantelle. Happy Chantelle, and you unlock fantastic benefits for yourself, such as 9% discount on all their anniversary kits, and you will see what they are on the website. You receive a free gift from them. You get a SunKidz Tense Pad to enhance your experience as well. And then, of course, if you just want to work with the regular priced items, you just use my code Chantelle, coupon code Chantelle, and you will then be able to get a 5% discount on all your purchases. So, yeah, I mean, I have to say, for those of you who have used the SunKidz machines, they really, really are amazing. You always see me raving about them. And I must say, I've spoken to a lot of people who've used them, so it's really cool. So yeah, try it out. Medicine of the future, frequency medicine. So it's amazing when we can see stuff like this. People will often ask me, by the way, why do I endorse SunKidz when I don't like med beds and stuff like that? Med beds are very different to the SunKidz machine. If you guys have been watching Caleb shows, you will know what they use in those med beds. If it's just with pure frequency medicine and stuff like that, I would say go for it, but it's not. What the SunKidz is that John White has created their own frequencies that emulate nature. And of course, we are one with nature, aren't we? So what it does is it obviously detoxes you, and then out with the old, in with the new, then brings in the new frequencies that match whatever issue it is you're dealing with, right? So when you have that, it kind of retrains your body to do it for itself again. And if somebody has been sick for a long time or had really bad illnesses, that's what it does, okay? Your body needs to retrain itself. So you then will use it for a short space in time. And then afterwards, you know, your body learns how to do it itself again. So you're literally retraining your body to do things naturally and in a healthful way. So yeah, try it out if you haven't already, everybody. You won't be sorry. Coolness and light. So yeah, we have our lovely nerd of the century, Bryce.
It's so funny. While you were talking about that, a mutual friend of ours was actually texting me because he's trying to get his SunKidz machine during the anniversary to make sure, because the anniversary ends on the 30th. So I was like, no, just it's you can tell that there. So yeah, yeah, you guys should totally use her code and get the Rife machine because it's pretty amazing.
Well, aren't you also you haven't you had a interview with
yet. I haven't had a chance to order yet, but I've talked to Brad. I think you've spoken to Brad as well, and I loved him. He was just such a nerd, and I loved it. He was a science nerd. I'm the history nerd. He's the science nerd. But it made sense, and it's exciting.
Brad has also been on. I've also interviewed him. He's these guys, and if you guys watched Bill McGraw the other day that I interviewed, that interview was struck. You're still going to find it on X or Twitter. Brilliant interview, by the way. So if you haven't caught that, because and the reason why they struck, I think, my interview with Bill McGraw was because they took down his site a while back, and he's definitely on their red alert. And then, of course, you guys have also watched interviews, because I regularly interview some of the SunKidz therapists and stuff like that. Therapists, I don't think that's what you call them, but anyway. And the other one was Sidesh, Dr. Sidesh, I call him. Can't remember his surname now. But as well, the Indian guy, also a doctor, and also been using this for a while and amazed. And yes, Jessica, honestly, if your therapist is putting you on meds, then I'm going to suggest you change your therapist, okay? And I say that because I think the time for meds, and by the way, for those of you who've been watching Jerry Marzinski talking about therapists and meds, I'm having him on again on Saturday night or Saturday morning for you. Fantastic guy. Really, really amazing. So tune in to him on Saturday, because he's the guy that has discovered that schizophrenia is not voices in your head. It's literally entities that take over, and it's their voices that are talking through you, giving you the thoughts. And if you guys have been watching Caleb's show, when he talks about soul gems, especially in psych wards and in prisons, what they would do from the arcane is that if the person obviously has given permission, whether it's conscious or unconscious, so permission is given with an overdose of drugs, with given permission to use your body or sell your soul or anything like that. But literally, there's got to be a doorway into your being that they enter, and you give them permission. And then they literally, with the use of soul gems, they take your soul. That's what they talk. They take your soul and they use your soul as their own battery. So when you're using the soul, when they are using your soul as their own battery to recharge them, then something else is taken over your body. So that's what happens. Now, can that be changed? Absolutely, yes. But the way to do it is to raise your frequency. You have to raise your frequency.
You got to take your power back. You got to just stop giving it up. I have to say, Charmaine just said, love you, Bryce. So exciting. And I have to say, Charmaine, before we even came on, we were sitting backstage, and I was telling you, Shanti, like, we have the freaking coolest audience in the planet, don't we? I don't even think we're calling them audiences. You guys are friends. You're not, but you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
I was just telling you, Shanti, I was like, I love Mondays because I love seeing what you guys have to say in the comment section, because y'all, excuse my French, but you're fucking funny. Like, we have some really funny people. And when you're able to be funny like that, quick-witted like that, that shows high intelligence, very high intelligence. Totally. And so totally. I appreciate, I'm just looking at all the comments. I just appreciate you guys so much. So we've got Beam Me Up Scotty. Scotty, are you the only dude in the chat right now? I think
he's in Australia too.
I know, like, high five to the only dude in the chat. Like, you know where all the ladies are, don't you, Scotty?
And I have to tell you guys as well, sorry, speaking about Australian guys as well, got a new Australian whistleblower coming on this week as well. A guy called Darren Adams. He's coming on Thursday. I got to tell you, my niece is in Australia at the moment and telling me horror stories from hell. Horror stories from hell. She got herself into some trouble with the law when she was young. I mean, I don't even want to say it, what they did to her, what the cops, she says, but those aren't cops, and they're not. So, and Australia has got the highest concentration of Freemasons, by the way. So now we understand why. And I think it's also because if we go back to the old years, there were lots of prisoners that were being...
I love Australia. I spent some time in Australia in the early 2000s, and my heart goes out to all the Australians. I think out of everyone in this world, they got hit. They were some of the ones that got hit the hardest with all the shenanigans that have been going on. And my heart just goes out to all the human beings, the souled people in Australia who are dealing with everything as across the world, but thus is the timeline we chose, right? We chose to come here. So I don't know what my ass was thinking.
And eat out this crap. Root out this crap.
I must have been real bored, y'all. We were real bored. So we were like, we gotta go make some fun. So anyway, but yeah, I love the Australians. I love, well, I mean, everybody. I think that's the beautiful thing about what's happened in these last few years. We know that the darkness can't create anything. It can only steal from the light and invert it. And I think these globalists wanted to put us under like a very negative one world government. But what's happened in the opposite respect is we've become globalists, but not in their way. We've become globalists in the fact that I think we realize that out of all these countries all over the world, people are just people. They're just trying their best. And you know, I think we've learned that all across the world, all the nations want to support each other and their own sovereignty, you know, and I think that's what's biting them in the ass so much is we did come together, just not under them. We came together as human beings. And so that's one of the most beautiful things that I think has happened in this very chaotic time. I mean, look at our chat. I mean, how many people we've got? Australia, America, like how many other, I'm sure we've got some Canada in there. Like,
yeah, you know, there's Canadians, there's Europeans, there's people from Japan, yeah, from Philippines. I mean, we certainly have just an incredible, amazing audience.
My second highest, I will say, if you look at your analytics on YouTube, my highest demographic is obviously United States. My second highest is Australia. So I always say there's Germany. Yeah, I always say I'm esoteric Atlanta and esoteric Australia because that's my second highest demographic. And then after that, it's the United Kingdom. So yeah, we're all just trying to figure it out together, guys. So we're all just trying to figure it out together, and we can look at these history stories and gossip about them together. We can gossip. We'll have a little gossip sesh about these people and make fun of them just a little bit in their ridiculousness. We got Western Australia. Yep. I mean, this is cool. And how cool is this, guys? Like we know they created like the internet. Well, they didn't create it. They stole the information from us, but they've used things like Zoom and the internet to try to like control us. But look what's happening. We're uncontrollable. We're uncontrollable.
Well, we definitely, I mean, we're moving into the age of Aquarius, right? Well, yep. We kind of shuffling our way in there, like limping.
You know what? One of my favorite quotes is "Good girls rarely make history," and we've got a boy in here too, Scotty. So we'll say good boys rarely make history, right? Well,
are there any other boys in the chat? Come, earn up, guys. Show yourselves.
But good girls rarely make history. So we're being bad girls today, and we're gonna make fun of Vladimir Lenin.
Yeah, looks like another boy. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
At least, are you a boy? It must be. When you have junior behind your name, that's usually a male.
Awesome. Guys like to gossip too. One of my favorite human beings to gossip with is my boyfriend. So we talk shit about a lot of people in the yoga world in the pillow talk, right? Pillow talk. So anyway, what did Scotty say? Good girls do it too. Bad ones do it better.
Exactly.
I'll take it, Scotty.
Especially when you're Aquarian in the age of Aquarius, we have such fun.
I know.
This is so our time. So to all the trolls out there, read between the lines.
Yes, exactly. Let me just fix my makeup. No, no, I always think too, you guys, like, not only are we the wild ones that are, you know, out of their control, but we look really good doing it too. Like everybody I see who's on this, like, we're so have you seen them? Like, look at Bill Gates. Like, y'all, we are so good looking compared to them. Like, not only are we
I'm sorry, he's not. Have you seen Klaus Schwab's wife? No.
Have you seen any of the Rothschilds? Hello. Like, I don't want that gene pool. Thank you very much. You can keep your money. You guys look haggard. Like, we might be poor, but at least we're cute. Like, at least we don't look inbred.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like, keep your money.
Everyone needs something nice to look at, right?
At least we're cute.
I don't
think there's anybody out there having like sex fantasies about the Rothschilds, right? Like, you know, keep you guys. We should make that a T-shirt. Like at least we look cute. Like we might be poor, but at least we look cute. So anyway.
Exactly.
But
that's so important. To look cute when you're doing things is super important. And that's why girls need nice looking husbands as well. We all need something nice to look at first thing in the morning.
That's why we always put our lipstick on before we come on the show, guys. If we're gonna gossip about the idiocracy of this like controller group, at least we need to look cute doing it. So
I'm just looking at this. I mean, Lisa D, you're such a star. She's just given one of her Spooky 2 machines to Jessica.
Aww.
I mean, this is just amazing. Yeah, so I love that. You see, that's what we do. Yeah, you guys are amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, we have the coolest people. I mean, honestly, I was like, again, I was telling you, Shanti, before we even signed on, we were seeing some of the chat get started, and I was like, I just love our chat. I mean, of course, we get the odd troll every now and again, but our chat, like you guys are phenomenal. I was telling Shanti one day when Shanti comes to America, one day, whenever that happens,
working on it.
We need to do like find a central place, like on the East Coast or something. Get it set up so we can do like a live show and have you guys actually be there, and we can get microphones set up and actually do like a live show. So that we can.
That'd be so whack and roll. Yeah, exactly.
So
we definitely will do that. Definitely will do that.
How fun would that be to have like a live gossip sesh about some weird history story?
And we can get really petty. We'll get really petty,
y'all. Real petty, like real petty. So yeah. So
we're gonna come visit you all. You guys must be careful. I'm learning how to teleport, so just make sure you all have got no glass furniture there. I'm going to come crashing in.
Did you guys, Shanti, when you were little, did you have the commercials with the Kool-Aid Man? Where he'd run through the wall, the Kool-Aid Man? Like, that's Shanti, guys. You're just going to be sitting in your house watching TV, and all of a sudden Shanti's going to bust through the wall. Be like, did it work? Did it work?
Oh, wow. Yay! So we're all going to be doing proper Kool-Aid adverts because we're drinking our Kool-Aid every day.
Hey, you know,
with our tinfoil hats, and we are so happy doing it. And our fairy lights, you can see fairy lights work wonders.
We should do that if we have a live show, Shanti. We should have tinfoil hats that everyone has to put in before they come into the auditorium.
Yeah, and we put like feelers on them. We put like little feelers.
It's just an audience full of like, I mean, what a fabulous picture that would be. Like that would be awesome.
I think it's the best.
See, I love our sassy attitudes too. Is that you listen? Is that how you say your name? I love our we love a sassy broad on this channel. We love a sassy broad.
Yeah, we love you guys feeling sassy as well. I really, 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 really do.
So anyway, I bet Reynolds would sponsor us.
Who's Reynolds?
It's a company that makes like aluminum
Kool-Aid,
like aluminum caps, like or aluminium. How you guys say it, aluminium. That's a big company here. Listen, Lisa D.
You guys call it aluminum. I don't know where you come on your crazy words. It's aluminium, not aluminum.
We say Adidas instead of Adidas. But listen, listen, if we can get Reynolds Wrap to, that's a big company, Shanti. If we can get them to sponsor us.
And then Kool-Aid was
oh my God. How fabulous would that be to have Kool-Aid sponsor you? Kool-Aid, if you're listening, if you're listening, I think that would be ironic and absolutely fabulous.
We have to. Aluminium, not aluminum. Aluminium.
We say Adidas instead of Adidas. We say Nissan instead of Nissan. Anyway. Nissan. We say Nissan.
And vitamins, not vitamins.
We say
vitamins.
We say herbs instead of herbs. We say Nike instead of
herbs.
Herbs.
Hilarious.
America, for the people who are not Americans, in America, the word fanny means your butt. not your female bits, but your butt, like your backside. And so a lot of the times, after I lived in England for a while, I learned that fanny meant something different in England than it did in the United States. And all the church ladies after church would always say, if the sermon was a little too long, they would all say they had fanny fatigue. Now, when I hear an old church lady say she has fanny fatigue, because I know
your fanny's the JJ.
Yeah, I would be like, girl, I used to get fanny fatigue all the time when I was in my 20s.
Hilarious. Jessica, you give that baby of yours a hug. He's the cutest little thing. Jessica sent me a picture of that cute little baby, little chubby legs. I just like, just give me a
chubby babies are the best. Their little soft, squishy legs.
Yeah, little chubby legs. I mean, oh my gosh, little smiling, these little teeth.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's so sweet.
I know,
yeah, Scotty, he said it means your badge here. No, Scotty, in the United States, it means your butt. So when you hear a bunch of old ladies that coming out of church going, man, that sermon was way too, I was getting fanny fatigue from that sermon.
Okay. Well, anyone else getting fanny fatigue from between the Bolsheviks?
Well, I think Catherine the Great is the one that gets the award for the biggest fanny fatigue.
Had the most fanny fatigue.
Tsarina Alexandra might have had some fanny fatigue because her and Nicholas really loved each other and they had a lot of babies. So I'm sure, which is saying a lot because most of the time the royals it's an arranged marriage. So, but listen, for men, that should be your goal, men. Make your wife so happy that she's got fanny fatigue.
Well, you know that you guys have names like Randy. Randy seems to be a common name in America with the bank, and that means like horny. Where I am, that means like horny. So you send your man to me with his name Randy, I'm gonna run away.
Here in America, for like Randall. My favorite is the nickname for Richard which is Dick, and we have a male strip club in Atlanta called Swinging Richards. I think that person.
My son, when he was there, he spoke about the pink. What was it? The pink something.
There's a pink pony. There's the
downtown. Pink pony.
What is? Oh my God, my mind. The cheetah. The cheetah is downtown. That's like the oldest strip club. Listen, Atlanta's got a lot of strip clubs, y'all. We got We got hip hop here. We're the home of hip hop and rap. We got lots of strip clubs in Atlanta, Georgia. But my favorite bar is it's a gay bar. It's a gay strip club. Swinging Richards.
Listen, I think when my son was studying in Atlanta, he had the best time because you American girls are very forward compared to us South African girls. I mean, there's no question around. You'll just tell the guy what you want, and we're not used to that here in South Africa. Usually, we wait for the man to be all chivalrous and make the first advance. So he was super excited.
I'm not forward with men. I wait for men to come to me. Yeah. But yeah, no, Atlanta's a fun city. I will say that Atlanta, actually, it's kind of weird because Atlanta, since the Olympics in 1996, really grew, and it's a very eclectic city. We have a lot of art. We have the Beltline, a lot of stuff that is going on in Atlanta. New York is actually trying to do in New York City. So if you guys ever come to Atlanta, it's like, and when I travel now, especially when I go to India, when people find out I'm from Atlanta, that's like their response is, oh my God, I really want to. I hear Atlanta's just fantastic. We're the greenest city in the United States, meaning we have a ton of parks here. We're right at the base of Appalachia, so there's lots of hills. It's very hilly. We have a whole lots of huge art. We have Savannah College of Art and Design, which is in Savannah. We also have campuses here in Atlanta. So anyway, Atlanta's a very beautiful city, Scotty. It's a gorgeous city. It's very green, very, very. Like I'm right off of Piedmont Park. And we're a very green city, very colorful city. We have a big what we call living walls, which we have like street artists come and like actually do murals on all the buildings here. We have like murals everywhere and art everywhere and lots of museums because a lot's happened here in Atlanta, historically speaking. So absolutely. So anyway, and it's really hot atmosphere, so we don't really have a winter. So that's kind of nice if you're used to getting out of the you want to get out of the snow. Atlanta is because it's so hot here. There's a lot of outside stuff to do, and the Beltline is fantastic. The Beltline is actually great, but we're not really talking about Atlanta today. So we're talking about Russia.
Well, let's go on because honestly, the Bolsheviks and the Romanovs are standing in the Side wings, yeah, waiting to make their grand entrance.
And I have to say, I feel like I say this almost every single show, but I want to start off with a bit of a disclaimer because we know there are people out there, we got trolls out there that try to twist what we say. And, we know, I think I say this, like, historically speaking, that there might be a different timeline. We've talked about Tartaria. I think I say that a lot. Like, even though I'm doing research on what we have, like the official narrative, I am aware that there is a totally different timeline we could be looking at. However, with that being said, when it comes to modern world history, I feel like we can be a little bit more, we can rely a little bit more on what we have when it comes to modern world history. Because if we think about it, I want to point this out very quickly to you guys, because again, I had somebody comment a really nasty comment. I know that there is, and we're not going to be talking about Hitler today, but I'm going to use this as an example. I know that there's this theory out there that Hitler might not have been a bad guy, that he could, according to the law of one, Hitler tried to polarize negative guys. Anytime there's like genocide and murder of innocent people, that's not the positive. I feel like that's junk conspiracy that the controllers put out there to warp our minds to get us to think something that is actually bad is good. So I wanted to kind of put this into perspective, you guys. And maybe when we're looking at Vladimir Lenin, we're looking at the development of the USSR and the Bolshevik Revolution against the Romanovs. I want to put this into perspective. So Anastasia Romanov was born in 1901, and Alexei Romanov was born in 1904. My great-grandfather Paul, my dad's mom's father, was born in 1901 as well, and his little sister Millie, my great-great-aunt Millie, was born in 1904. Okay, so I remember Paul and Millie. My great-grandfather Paul died in 1986. I was like almost 4 when he died, so I have a few memories of him. But Millie, my great-aunt Millie, great-great-aunt Millie, didn't die until 1996. So I was 13 years old when I remember her. Like, I have memories of her. So when we're talking about modern world history, we're hearing stories from our grandparents. We have to understand that even though it might, with modern world history, it might not be exactly as the history books say it is, but it's close enough for us not to, we can question stuff that happened 500 years ago, supposedly, a little harder than modern world history. And I want to say too, I know that my dad's father's mother, so my great-grandmother, her parents, her name was Trixie Elizabeth, my middle name, her parents immigrated from Germany at the beginning of the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, which is around the time period we're going to be talking about today. And the reason why they immigrated from Germany was because of what we're going to talk about today. So they left, my great-great-grandparents, Trixie's parents, my great-grandma, left Germany, came to America because of what was happening, because of this, right? And so, again, I just ask, I never thought, and most of you guys are totally amazing, like as we were saying, but I find it very ironic that in the truther world or the disclosure world, we have so many people who are so close-minded and they want to stick to the official truther narrative without actually considering other perspectives as well. And we want to keep an open mind. So what I'm taking from you guys is directly from my research. I looked up old newspaper articles, obviously mainstream history books, all that kind of stuff to get a better feel for what actually was happening with the Bolshevik Revolution. Because things don't just happen overnight. They don't, right? They build, as we've seen these last few weeks, this aggression against the Romanovs, the Tsars, has been building at this point for at least 100 years in Russia. And again, the reason why we started looking at this, the history of the Romanovs, the history of the Bolsheviks, is because we're seeing, in my opinion, we're seeing history repeat itself. And I think sometimes we become so desperate for change. So what is it? My enemy's enemy is my friend, or something like, there's a saying, my enemy's enemy is my friend. Sometimes we don't realize where we're being manipulated again. And it is my opinion, and this is my opinion, that the quote unquote truther community is just as puppeted and just as controlled as the normie world. That's just my opinion. I have reasons I believe that. And so I just ask you guys to have an open mind. Use your critical thinking skills when we look at what the Bolsheviks were promising the people, and then think about things that Q, the 17th letter of the alphabet, was promising us. And it's kind of scary. because you're going to see some of the same stuff. And it makes me wonder, was the 17th letter of the alphabet just another controlled opposition? That's where I don't know. That's just kind of my speculation at this time. So let's look at the early. So we're going to back up to when Lenin was born. And again, another disclaimer, Lenin, I know Lenin was not his birth name, Vladimir Lenin, but my ass, as we've established, is from Atlanta, Georgia. And I speak English, and I'm not going to try to butcher some of these. Russian is hard. Russian is a very harsh language for those of us who don't speak Russian. So I'm not going to try to butcher his birthday, and also by saying Vladimir Lenin, we all know who we're talking about, right? Everybody knows who that is. So I'm going to refer to him and his family as the Lenins, even though that's not their actual name. All right, so let's just kind of look at, yes, Nancy, absolutely. There's nothing new under the sun. Rinse and repeat. Absolutely. So early 1900s, Russia at this point is in a bad state, super impoverished, a large peasantry community, and underdeveloped. So if we remember back, we talked about this last week in 1861, Alexander II, Tsar Alexander II, who was Nicholas II's grandfather, he abolished serfdom. And because he abolished serfdom, it allowed more people to get organized. Well, I learned even more about this abolition of serfdom in Russia that makes Russia's situation was a whole lot worse than the United States of America. So that's interesting to me, that Russia's sins get pushed under the carpet where everybody else is getting. That's interesting to me, right? So when Alexander II freed 20 million people from slavery, 20 million, versus the United States, same time it was only 4 million. 20 million white people who were slaves. Not only did he free them, but he actually imposed a tax on them. So basically, so the people who were coming out of serfdom had to pay a higher tax, because his logical thinking was all of these landowners, these nobles who had free labor to produce from their land, now all of a sudden these landowners don't have the free labor to produce the products from their land. So now the serfs are responsible for paying that back to the landowners. So the people who were creating free labor to begin with are now enslaved to a tax system so that the rich people can continue to get rich off of them. The United States didn't do that.
Nothing has changed, has it?
Yeah, the United States didn't do that to their that's something the United States never did. So, you know, why are we not talking about this with what happened with that? This is a horrible thing. I mean, slavery is wrong anyway, regardless. It's wrong. Any slavery is wrong. But how come we're not talking about the white people that got brutally pushed in this and then had to basically got freed, but weren't really freed? Like, that doesn't make sense. So at this time too, we have coming into the 20th century, we have the Industrial Revolution, right? We all know that. And so with so many people freed from the farms, the Industrial Revolution pushed people into cities. So from 1890 to 1910, the population in Moscow and St. Petersburg doubled. Right? So because these people, these serfs, have to get jobs because they have high taxes that they have to pay, or they might be enslaved again and jailed. So they get pushed into these cities where they're working in these factories. Living conditions are terrible. They're overcrowded. Diseases everywhere. People are getting poorer and poorer and poorer, while the czars and the noble people are getting richer and richer and richer. Right? They're living in opulence. Yeah. So we're looking at kind of the mood of Russia anyway at this time, to allow for someone like Vladimir Lenin to come in and cause utter destruction and chaos. So, all right. Okay, so I wrote my notes. It became more and more obvious that there was a huge divide between the people and the czar. How could the czar afford his lifestyle when Russians couldn't even eat? So, all right. So I want you guys to bear that in mind when we're coming into Vladimir Lenin's life and how he ended up becoming the tyrant that he became. Now, I also want to say, does that sound familiar? Because even though I can say for me, I'm not poverty stricken like the people of Russia, but we're seeing that all over the world now. People are in a huge recession right now. People are getting poorer and poorer and poorer. They're struggling to make ends meet. In the United States, we're seeing people go homeless now all the time, but yet we see Biden eating ice cream on the beach. So is it not the same thing that we're looking at? Is history not repeating itself? And yes, Ulysses, the illusion of freedom. It's the illusion of freedom, you know? Absolutely. Absolutely. So now let's talk about Vladimir Lenin. Okay, Vladimir Lenin was born on the 22nd of April of 1870. Now, what's interesting about Vladimir Lenin is his family, the family that he comes from. And I know that I probably have studied, you guys, we probably studied Lenin in school, but for some reason in my head, when I think about communists, when I think about Lenin, I think about someone that came from peasantry that rose up and, you know, but that's not necessarily true with Lenin. Now, remember Abel's prophecy, he said a peasant with an axe. What he's referring to in this is Lenin's father. So Lenin's father, Papa Lenin, he was born into serfdom. Okay, so Lenin was born 9 years after the serfs were freed. And Lenin was one of 8 children. He was not the oldest child. We're going to talk about Lenin's older brother in a second. But his father came out of serfdom. He was freed. His father was super intelligent. So he studied mathematics. He rose himself from lower class to middle class. So Lenin's father rose up out of serfdom, did what he had to do, and then became so prominent himself that he was able to marry Lenin's mother. Now, we're going to talk about Mama Lenin because I feel sorry for Mama Lenin. We're going to see her try to save her son multiple times coming up. But Mama Lenin was a well-educated daughter of a wealthy Swedish mother and a Russian Jewish father who was a physician who had converted to Christianity. So his mother was born into nobility. Lenin's mother was a noble. She came from a noble family. And his father had worked himself out of serfdom to the point where he was eligible to marry his mother. So technically speaking, even though Lenin's father had been born a peasant, Lenin himself was born into the nobility of the Russian society. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He was not born poor. Okay. Now, what I find very, very odd, and I literally want to know what kind of mommy issues and daddy issues Lenin had because his parents were both monarchist. So his parents supported the czar. What kind of daddy issues and mommy issues didn't, like, a lot of times kids take on a very different political perspective from their parents, but to go from being raised in nobility by 2 parents who are monarchist to being Vladimir Lenin, the first tyrant of communism to rule, what happened to you as a child? Because that's crazy. That's wild that he went from that such an extreme from his parents. But we do have some indications of what happened to him. So in January of 1886, so old Vladdy boy was like 15, 16 years old at this time. 2 things happened in 1886 that massively, I would assume, I don't know Lenin personally. None of us were alive then. But 2 things happened that probably really messed with his head. First of all, his dad died unexpectedly of a brain hemorrhage. So at 15, 16 years old, all of a sudden the father's gone. Now that is going to play a role in a kid's head because father, that's a patriarch of your family. You're still a kid. And to have your dad just all of a sudden gone, that's got to do something to you. Well, that same year, y'all, Alexander, Vladdy's older brother, I love how I make up nicknames. His name's Vladdy now. Vladdy's older brother was executed by the Tsar for trying to kill the Tsar. He was 21 years old. So let's talk about Alexander, Vladdy's older brother. So Alexander, I think I sent you a picture of Alexander, Shanti, the young boy. That's a kind of an oval face. They're all, I was going to say the black and white picture, but they're all black and white pictures.
I was going to say there's all black. Okay, this one here looks about the youngest.
Alexander. That's Vladdy's brother. So Alexander was a few years older. He was born in 1866. So he was 4 years older than Vladdy. Now he went off to St. Petersburg Imperial University. And at that time, he started to get indoctrinated, as you do in university, into these very extremist political beliefs that are going to be turning into communism, right? So Alexander, Vladdy's older brother, was into this before Vladdy was. And they decided that they were going to try to do to Alexander the Third, as in the Tsar. Not this kid is Alexander as well, but Alexander the Third, who is Nicholas II's father. He is at this point he is on the throne of Russia. And Alexander II, Alexander the Third's father, is Nicholas II's grandfather, was the one that got assassinated, had his legs blown off. So what they tried to do on March 1 of 1887, Alexander, Vladdy's brother, and his comrades decided to assassinate Alexander III on the anniversary of his father's assassination. They knew Alexander III would be visiting the church on his father's death anniversary, and they were arrested right outside of the church. This was going to be known as the second first of the month, because they were going to assassinate Alexander III. They're going to try to do it the same day that his father had been assassinated. So they created the stuff that starts with a B. I know we can't see that word on YouTube, BOMB, that thing. And they had it on them. And they were, they're kids. They're 21-year-old kids. They're probably dumb. They're kind of dumb, like they're probably not going to make the best assassins, right? Their brain hasn't finished developing. And so they got caught. And some of the participants were excused by Alexander III, but Alexander, Vladdy's brother, was not excused. And so he was hung and executed. Now, with that being said, because his mother, the mommy Lenin, was a noble, born a noble, at this point, from what historians say, even though the older brother had gotten caught up in the extremist groups and lost his life, the government was not looking at the family because the mother was in good standing. So the Lenin and his family were still kind of under this in the shadows. Now, so it's a very interesting dynamic in my perspective, like super interesting dynamic. I have a feeling that if we look at old Vladdy here, there's probably a lot of CPTSD trauma related. There's a lot of anger towards the Tsar. I mean, you've got two very important people that you're close to that die the same year. And even though the father's death was natural causes, it was just it was an accident, brain hemorrhage, the Tsar had nothing to do with that, right? I could see how someone like a young teenage boy might take his anger and aggression and throw everything at the Tsar. I mean, the Tsar is responsible for his older brother's death, right? But his older brother is actually kind of responsible for his own death because he's the one that decided to try to take, but as a kid, I hope that makes sense. You've got a target now. You've got someone to target, to project your aggression on and your anger on. All right. So in August of 1887, Lenin gets accepted into Kazan University. Right here, he starts to join student groups, with these very radical beliefs. He goes to a demonstration and he gets arrested and exiled. So these counter political groups are illegal in Russia at this point. I might not have said that. They're illegal. Like these people do not have free, like for the Americans out there, they don't got freedom of speech. Like they can't. So they're which is obviously going to make it even more enticing to young people, right? Because they're illegal. So while in exile, he starts to read more. He starts to really get into the works of Karl Marx. This is not an episode about Marxism, but just a side note. If you study that man, Karl Marx, what a psychopath. Like this man was a total narcissist. He treated his wife like shit. He was lazy. He made his wife do everything for him. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to listen to the political theology of a man who can't even wipe his own damn ass, right? So he makes his wife do everything. So just as a side note, but he starts to get into Marxism. Now his mom, bless his mom's heart, she works really hard to get Vladdy, unexiled. I think the mom at this point is starting to see her son is going down the same path as his older brother. I think the mother is panicked. And I think that she feels like if she can get her son back into society, back to university, back around kids his own age, maybe he'll get distracted and he'll put away these silly ideas like Marxism. I think I sent you a picture of the mother. It's the older woman, the one picture of, and there's also a family picture too. Yeah, that's her older. That's Lenin's mom. And I actually feel sorry for her. Like we're going to see her really try to course correct Lenin. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. And I think there's a picture I sent you of the whole family when Lenin was young with his dad and his mom and all of his siblings. Yeah, there we go. There they are. Look, people always just look so ugly back then. I'm sorry. Like I look at pictures, black and white pictures of my family back then. I'm like, life just looked bad back then. Like, people just looked miserable.
There was no filters, babe. There was no filters.
No filters. At least we got filters now. But yeah, and that bald man, that's his dad.
Where is he? Which one is he?
I think he was like the second oldest boy. So I would have to
guess. The one in between them.
I think maybe the one sitting on his dad's right side, looking. It would be his dad's left, but us looking at it is the right.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think I'm not 100%.
Even the one next to his mom. Who knows? That also looks like a boy.
Yeah. So but that's the whole family. That's the whole Lenin bunch right there. So mom is like really trying to steer him away from all that Marxist crap and that extremist crap, and their monarch. She's a monarchist. Remember this, guys. Like, she believes in the czar. But not only that, but her oldest son has already been executed for getting involved in this stuff. So she gets him to the point where he can go back to the city, but he cannot return back to school. So once back into the city, he actually falls even deeper into more political extremist groups. So the mother panics. So Mama Lenin panics. And I actually called him on my channel. I called him Bratty Vladdy, because this next move to me is such a spoiled brat, like what Vlad does. So the mother panics because her plan is backfiring. So she buys Vladdy a farm, because she thinks if I buy him a farm, he could be a farmer. I can give him something to do. He can work in the dirt. He can, create his own little business. And he turns around and goes, no, thanks. If someone wants to buy me a farm, thank you. I will totally take it. And that's why I called him like Bratty Vladdy, because like, your mom just bought you a farm. Like, your mom just paid for you to have your own home and your own business. Like, what the hell? Like, anyway. All right. So in 1889, he does move to a place called Samara with his family. Here in Samara, his social circle grows even deeper. He learned more political theories that helped him shape his views. And his mother is freaking out. So she's trying to figure out something that he can do. And because of his mother's standing as a noblewoman, she's able to persuade the government to allow Vladimir Lenin to sit exams without actually going to school. Which part of me is like, if you can take an exam and pass it without going to school, I think that's actually a really great thing, and that maybe should be an option. But he's smart, so he does sit his exams, college, university exams, without actually going to university, and he passes them. And so now he's able to work in law. He starts working for law offices. So Mama Lenin is like, oh, thank God. Oh my God. Thank you, God. He's going to start working. He's going to get a job now. He's going to get a career. All these crazy political views that he's gotten himself these will fall by the wayside. This is fantastic. But of course, no such luck, because in 1891, 2 years later, something pretty devastating happens in Russia. In 1891, there was a famine that killed 400,000 people. They died of starvation, where millions more were so malnourished that it affected themselves for the rest of their life. And the monarch was blamed for slow response. Now, the cabal aside, like conspiracies aside, when something like a natural disaster happens, and I don't know if this was manipulated by the weather, I don't know. Let's say it wasn't. Let's just say something happened, a freak of nature, and there was this famine. I don't even, for a slow response, like, part of me is like, was that the monarch's fault or not? But were people already so mad at the monarch that they became, again, the scapegoat? So at this point, I just think there's so much animosity amongst the Russian people that no matter what the monarch does at this point, it's never going to be good enough.
Yeah, I think, when you just look at how they've been treated, as complete peasants, and having this 0.5% elites, if you want to call it, the creme de la creme, sitting on the top, persecuting, assassinating, beheading, God knows what all else, traumatizing, terrorizing, the entire population. And even though, in my opinion, there might have been one or two that were okay, or try to maybe have the people's interest at heart, they were really impotent to do anything against.
Yeah, they were damned if they do and damned if they didn't at this point. I mean,
Yeah,
I look
exactly.
at you look at the Biden administration. Like, even if the Biden administration were to do something good for the people, I would still be skeptical. I would be like, what's the catch? Yes, you're
Yeah.
right, and I do think
It's not, and you know what? It's not only the Biden administration. You know, I think what Biden has done, or whoever it is that's puppeteering Biden, you know, I think there's always, this thing is so well orchestrated, honestly, and it has been. You look, and I'm not, you know, and again, guys, I'm not going for the Americans, please, but because America is one of the superpowers, one of the three superpowers right now. And remember, China only came in recently. So it's always really been America and Russia. You look back over recent years, each and every one of the presidents, maybe not Carter. I'm still looking into Carter.
Oh, Carter's awful. No, Carter's terrible. I know. He's from Georgia.
Okay.
He's awful.
Okay,
yeah.
all right. Okay.
Yeah.
But they've all been, every one of the survivors I've spoken to have been trafficked by at least one of them, Nixon included, Ford included. You know, you don't hear about what's the one that was assassinated, JFK. We don't know, but then there's a lot of people talking about the fact that the Kennedys are not cool. I don't know that. I haven't looked into that too much, but you know, so as someone was saying earlier on, it's the illusion of freedom.
Yeah.
You know, it really has been the illusion of freedom.
Good guys and bad guys there, and that's what I want to point out to you.
But I'm talking about the leadership. Okay, I'm talking about the leadership. All the presidents, I mean, even if you look at these now, have had to go to Bohemian Grove. All of them, right? So there might be some that aren't as bad, but in order to get there, they've had to do a lot of crap. Right. So the bottom line is, if you look at America, for example, while everybody's thinking America is the country of freedom, look what the fuck has been happening behind the scenes. How much trafficking has been going on there? How much torture and rape, RAPE, of the kids and stuff that has been going on there? How much raping and pillaging of other countries has been done? How many people have suffered under that regime, and that aren't even Americans? So and the same with Russia, and what's happening now with China. It's always been. Obviously, we understand that this Luciferian agenda has been in play for a very long time, and yes, they've had to sell out. They've bought out the leaders and literally control them like puppets. But the bottom line is, I think everywhere we look, that is the situation. And especially, and Russia was always the bad guy. We always looked at Russia as being the bad guy. But you know, they have been, for sure. But so has every other country that has had dictators in leadership positions.
Yep.
And
sorry, go ahead.
No, carry on.
No, I was gonna say, that's exactly why we want to look at this, is because I think, Chantelle, I think what's happening is people get in their head that one person's good and one person's bad. I mean, that's the whole point, is we're looking at, you know, that we know the Bolsheviks were bad because look what happened with Russia, with communism, what the fruits of their labor were not good. But people are in this like truth of world are thinking, oh, well, you know, the Romanovs are going to come back, and Anastasia really survived.
I love this, Amanda. I love what you're saying there. Russia's a scapegoat for fear. Fully 100 billion% agree. And even in this country, because yes, they were involved. And and you know, when you look at a third world country like Africa, okay, I go back. I was, as I've said to you guys so often, I was brought up in the height of apartheid. But for us, the Americans were the good guys, and the Russians were the bad guys. The Russians were the commies, the communists, right? And if you were a white South African, you feared those communists because you knew that they were siding with the African people who were now going to kill us all, because that's how we were brainwashed. Okay, so the bottom line is that's not the truth, because you go back to 1993 when Mandela was elected. In fact, on the 27th of April was Freedom Day, right? Rubbish. When Mandela was elected. Before that, now if you guys look at our history, before that we had Chris Hani. Now, Chris Hani was also an African guy, and him and Mandela went way back far. He was assassinated, right, in 1993. And a Polish guy, Janusz Varush, who's been sitting in jail, apparently he's being released sometime now, or there's talk about him being released, for more than 30 years. Do you think he did it? No ways. I'm sorry. It was the US Special Forces who came and took out our high-value targets. He was considered a high-value target. Why? Because he was backed by the Russians and Mandela was backed by the Americans. And he was getting way too powerful for Mandela. And they thought that the election was going to go in Hani's favor. So really, you know, this happens. That's why I say, you look at these things.
We're being played by both. We're being played.
Totally.
And that's what happened to the, and I want to say too, like, just to reiterate you guys, like, when I say the Russians or we say the Americans or whatever, we're talking about the government, not the people, right? Like, the people are not the problem. Most people in the world, I mean, I'm very blessed.
That's not the people. But while they're fooling the people into believing that this is the ultimate freedom, this is what's going on behind the scenes. Again, it's living this cover life. It's the same thing with Australia. Look how beautiful everyone who goes to Australia looks at these beautiful, I mean, I have so many people I know living in Australia. And meanwhile, you speak to some of those overcomers and survivors, they've had the worst atrocities happen there because Australia has got the highest concentration of Freemasons.
Yeah. People, Amanda, people want the peace. And I've been very fortunate in my life that I've spent so much time. I've been to Zimbabwe, South Africa. I spent a lot of time in India, Australia, Europe. I've traveled so much in my life, and regardless of different cultures, what I've learned at the end of the day, everybody in the world is really the same. We all want this. We all want peace.
Yeah, exactly. We've been fooled. We've been duped. We've been taken advantage of. And that's why this time, and that's why the age of Aquarius, or the time of Aquarius, because Aquarius is all about freedom. Freedom is not running around burning things down and deciding just to take whatever you want. Freedom comes from a place within.
It comes from a heart sovereignty. It's in respecting. And I say that, you know, in all the places I've been, people want to show me their culture and they want to ask me questions about mine. And it's an excitement. It's a sharing of experiences, and it's an appreciation of different cultures and different people, and, you know, breaking bread together and learning from each other. And we all love, we all mourn, we all experience stress. That's why, you know, and so, and I love how you I hope I'm saying your name right, Jude. Ulysses. I hope I'm saying that right. He said the illusion of an enemy, that they have, that we have an illusion of a common enemy, and the common enemy really is the globalist, right? Like but they puppet you, and we can see how. Oh, good. I'm glad I'm saying your name right. We can see how we get duped, right? Like I again, after studying what the Bolsheviks were promising, which we'll get to, the people, it's exactly the same thing that Q was promising. So were we duped by that? Like, you know, and that's just but that's just anyway. But yeah, so at this point, in 1891, when this famine happens, who was the common enemy? I love the illusion of enemy. Who was the illusion of enemy to the Russian people? The Tsar. Now, was the Tsar good? And now the difference between like elected, I'll say, politicians and like royalty, I think there is a little, even though royalty isn't good because it's a pecking order, which is the negative path, I will say that I think there's a little bit more wiggle room with the monarchy because people are born into that family. They're not elected, right? So we see that with a lot of these royal families. And I do think that, there were probably some good Romanovs. I think that Nicholas II, from what I see of him, was probably at his heart a good person that was born into a very tough situation. But then you look at like Catherine the Great was a bitch, excuse my language. I hate to speak that way about another girl boss, but I mean, she was a girl boss, but she was not a good person, right? Like Peter the Great was a raging psychopath, you know, and just the fact that they're in this elite pecking order is a negative path. But, you know, when we look at, and I try to be that way with like the English royal family too, like look at individuals versus the whole. Even though the whole itself is not good, we don't want royalty coming in to save us. But individuals have their, and I will say this too, you know, if it wasn't for people who were born into these families that decided they didn't want to be a part of it all, like the Jessies, like the Calebs, like if we didn't have those people, then we wouldn't know half of what we know. You know, so thank you God that there are people that are born into this that can handle it, that have handled it, scars and all, you know?
God's spies. These are God's spies.
Yeah, so I think that I don't want to say that like all the Romanovs are bad. I'm just saying the
No,
institution of the Romanovs is what's bad,
exactly.
right? And so I do actually feel I have a lot of empathy for Nicholas II. I actually, because in this whole thing, there's a lot, you see a lot of stress with him, and he just doesn't know what to do, right? He doesn't know what to do. He's been set up to be the fall guy for the Romanovs. He doesn't know. I really don't think he knows what to do in this situation. He's doing the best he can. So 1891, they go through, and this is before Nicholas II, because his father was on the throne until like 1896. So Alexander III is still on the throne now, and all of a sudden we've got this family, this famine that the Tsar is being blamed for. Right. And so anyway, so that really helped people like Lenin. That famine worked in their favor, because it helped these revolutionary radical groups grow, these extremist groups grow. So 1893, Lenin moves to St. Petersburg. He worked for a law firm in St. Petersburg, and he gained a senior position in a Marxist revolutionary group called the Social Democrats. 1894, Lenin at this point is now being followed by the government. So by the government now has accepted that this kid could be problems, right? So same year, this is the same year Nicholas II takes the throne. And I really do see this whole revolution as a squaring off between Nicholas II and Vladdy. This is them, these two squaring off together. At this point, Lenin starts dating a Marxist school teacher named Nadia, and they are running an underground publication of Marxist books. Now, Nadia, I didn't send you a picture of her. She seemed scary to me, y'all. She looked kind of manly, and like definitely, it was more of a revolutionary than I think Lenin was. But, you know, if you're the woman in the relationship, I don't mean to sound crude or bad guys, but I think women have a lot, because of our fanny, women have a lot more pull, I think, in relationships. I had a friend that said once his dad, when in high school, his dad, like, he was an only child. He was eating dinner with his parents, and his mother got up and she's like, "You boys are doing the dishes tonight." And my friend and his dad were doing the dishes. And my friend said he asked his dad, he was like, "Dad, why do we have to do the dishes? Why can't mom do the dishes?" And his dad looked at him, he goes, "Son, in a marriage, the woman owns 50% of the assets and 100% of the P word." No truer words have been said. So when I talk about Vladdy and Nadia, I think Nadia might have pushed Vladdy a little bit deeper into the extreme, because she was in control of the sex. So
exactly.
Well, I mean, let's just be human about this for a second. So in 1895, Vladimir Lenin gets arrested for this underground publication of Marxist books. In 1896, he's exiled to Siberia for 3 years. 1898, Nadia, his girlfriend, joins him there, and they're married. In 1899, while in exile, he writes The Development of Capitalism in Russia. Now, in 1900, his exile is over. But between 1894 and 1900, these 6 years, something really, 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 really important happens. And that is the splitting of the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party. They split into two groups, the Mensheviks and the Bolsheviks. So the Menshevik in Russia means less control. So the Mensheviks were the part of the Social Democrats of Russia that didn't want as much control over the people. The Bolsheviks, however, wanted a total control. So the Bolsheviks were part of the Russian Democrat Socialist Movement Party that wanted to take control and literally control everybody. Big Brother is watching you. So, which I find super ironic, and I think a therapist would probably have better insight into this. If you are going against the Tsar because you think the Tsar has too much control, but yet you want that same control, if not worse, because let's be honest, I do believe that Russia was worse under the Bolsheviks, then what kind of psychology is that? You would think if you don't want the freaking Tsar to have this much control, or one group to have this much control over the people, then you would want a freer government for people. But no, that was the Mensheviks. The Mensheviks wanted a less control. The Bolsheviks were the ones that wanted more extreme control. So anyway, so that's where we get the name Bolsheviks from, you guys. So 1900, his exile is over, but he cannot go to St. Petersburg. He's not allowed there. So he settles in a small town just south of it. He starts to print newspapers again, spewing all this Marxist nonsense. But at this point, he knows if he continues, then he's going to get arrested again. So he decides to leave Russia. He goes to Munich. In 1901, Nadia joins him. In 1902, they move to London, where he writes the book, What is to be Done? In this book, What is to be Done? He argues that in order for communism to work, force is going to be needed. Force, violence is going to be needed in order for them to get done what they want to do. You know, I put this in quotes, for the greater good. We got to go violent for the greater good, right? This is where we get for the greater good, right? So all these works are being smuggled into Russia from Europe. So what he's doing is he's moving to other countries in Europe where there's less strict laws, printing up these pamphlets, these materials, and smuggling them into into Russia. Just like, you know, Q put on 4chan and 8chan and all these other platforms, same thing, right? So 1904, Lenin decides to do what any good narcissist does and does a total smear campaign, not just on the Tsar, but on the Mensheviks. Because every time he would print about violence is the only way, we got to take it by force, the Mensheviks, the other half of the party, would be like, no, we don't want to do violence. That's not right. That's not good. So Lenin has to get the Mensheviks out of the way, right? So he does that by smearing them. 1905, Bolsheviks takes total authority. But in 1905, we also have what was called a Bloody Sunday. And I will not, I sent you a link in the private chat, a link to a newspaper article from the New York Herald about the Bloody Sunday. Basically what happened if people want to read it, they can read the article from, basically what happened is there were strikes happening in St. Petersburg. They were petitioning the Tsar for more freedoms, and basically it turned into a massacre. The government basically massacred the people, which really made the people's hatred of the government even stronger, right? So at this point, the Russian government is really weak. So because the Tsar and the government is weak, Lenin at this point moves back to Russia. October 1905, Nicholas II delivers the October Manifesto, giving in to what the people wanted. Civil rights would be given, a new parliament would be created, elected by the people. But at this point, Amber, we might get into that next week. We're going to stop just a second, so I'll cover that next week. This is going to be a multi-parter because there's a lot going on here. So, but as people started to elect a new parliament, Nicholas II would be like, no, I don't like who you elected. So the people saw that as the Tsar going back on his word. All right, 1906, martial law is imposed. And every oh, we got another Aussie male. We're getting some men, Shanti. We're getting some men. Maybe we should start doing some shows in our two pieces, and so we can get.
Oh yeah, hello, Jeff.
So basically, and this is what drives me crazy. Everybody wants there to be martial law. I'm like, I don't want there to be martial law. You understand what that means, right? We're going to be back in lockdown again. And I don't care if you think the good guys are in charge. I don't want anybody in charge of me. Nobody needs to be taking our rights away. The good guys would never take your rights away. Would never do that. So anyway, but 1906, martial law is called in Russia. At this point, we hear Stalin starting to speak, and Stalin, of course, came after Lenin, but Stalin wanted to do a terror campaign. Just like Lenin, they were like, yes, let's be violent. Let's hurt people. Like what? Listen, both Lenin and Stalin must have had small penises. That's all I've got to say about that. If that's what they wanted, like, let's just start that rumor, guys, that any man that wants violence, thinks violence is the answer. Let's just start the rumor that they must have a small penis, because that's disgusting. So we start seeing Stalin popping his head up too, which we know he becomes the second in command of the USSR after Lenin. So 1908, Lenin is back in London, then to Paris. Basically, Lenin and Nadia are kind of vagabonding around Europe, kind of circling in on Russia, right, releasing all these pamphlets, waiting to strike. And at this point, we do see Lenin's health start to decline a little bit, which we'll get into after, you know, after he passes away and Stalin takes on. But I wanted to leave it at 1914, World War I breaks out. And we're going to leave it at World War I today. We'll pick back up with that next week. We'll go back into more of those questions next week. And we'll also look at Nicholas II's perspective next week too. We're going to end on, again, looking at the last bit is going to be looking at Anastasia Romanov and whether she survived the execution or not from the Bolsheviks, which is obviously one of Nicholas II's daughters. And of course, you guys, also, we probably won't speak that much about Rasputin this time round and his play, the part he played in this whole thing, because we already did a deep dive into Rasputin, you know, the guy with the pickled wiener. So he didn't have a small penis.
I was going to say, I have to disagree with you there, because quite frankly, Mr. Pickled Penis there, that
was not a small penis, y'all. That was a scary penis. Like, I would take a small penis. If you drop your pants, if you're a man and you are with me and you drop those pants and that's what comes out of your pants,
you're running.
Pull your pants right back up, because you are not going to be fatiguing this fanny today. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, I'm sorry. I am not that big of a person. So I would suggest, if you're, because that Rasputin story is very juicy, and we can also see, like, after reading Abel's note, and I expressed that last week, that I felt like Nicholas II, in his kind of derangement, because he was stressed, wanted to break the prophecy of the note by having Alexei, and then Alexei was sick, and I think that's what put them in him and his wife in a very vulnerable position to be manipulated by Rasputin. We know the law of one does say that Rasputin graduated service to self, so fourth density negative. So, but yeah, go back and rewatch that episode on Aquarius Rising Africa that we did the last episode of 2023 about Rasputin. If you want, I might touch on him a little bit, but the big bulk of that was in our deep dive into Rasputin.
We promise not to show you the pickled penis again. We won't show it to you again.
Maybe we should put him on t-shirt, Shanti.
Says run.
Charmaine, yep, hell no. Charmaine, literally, I don't know a woman out there that would see that. I mean, it was like the size of a forearm. Like, I'm sorry, what's that girl that measured herself against her face? Because men are like, I'm 12 inches, I'm 13 inches, and she's like, do you not understand? Like, why is this a good thing? So, yeah, it's all just, Ulysses, it's all just manipulation. Everything is manipulation. The Tsar was being manipulated while manipulating others. Vladimir Lenin was totally manipulating people while probably being manipulated himself. Like, it's just, everybody's manipulating everybody. And and I think the only people that are winning in this are the ones that are puppeting both sides. Right?
Well, they won for a while, let's face fact. But like everything, as long as it's not built on a solid foundation of truth and integrity, it's going to come crashing down.
Absolutely.
And that's what's happening now. It's coming crashing down. So it's time for truth to flourish.
Yes, Ulysses said in today's timeline, same game. Absolutely. That's why we're looking at it, because Ulysses, it's the exact same. You know, we just got fancier iPhones. That's all we got.
My cat wants to say hello, because she's running around me, clawing my chair, but then I put her on the desk and then she runs away.
Oh, man. It's not the size, it's how you use it. Charmaine, I don't know how much they're going to be able to make use of this. It's like a lightsaber. It's like, what are you joining Star Wars? Like, just like a weapon at that point. So yeah, but anyway, you guys, and that's a fascinating Rasputin. We talked about, there's still even a cult allegedly that takes from his wiener, and anyway, that's a crazy story. Like, listen, Linda. Have you seen that video, Shanti, where the kid's like, listen, Linda, listen, Linda, like, listen,
Linda, yeah.
To Earth, and you wind up in a cult where you're eating chunks of a dead dude's penis. You might have fucked up. That might not.
There's just something. Oh my God! No, don't make me throw up, please. I don't want to throw up now.
Listen. You swinging Richard to pickle penises. Yeah. So you can't talk about wieners when you talk about Russian history. That's what I have learned. I mean, shall we show Catherine the Great's furniture again? Like, you cannot escape it. When it comes to Russian history and the Romanovs, you are not going to get away from wieners. It's all about the wiener. And it's
apparently they like that a lot. Yeah.
So out of all the monarchs, and I have covered a crap ton of, I've covered the House of Bourbon, I've covered the Valois, I've covered the English monarchy. And listen, there is no wienerfied monarch quite like the Romanovs. Like they win. They win. They win.
Exactly.
So
oh my goodness. Okay, are we done, or do you want to end up with anything?
Let's stop with World War I, and then we'll go back next week. We'll look at Nicholas II. We'll look at other stuff too, because we know they were executed. The Romanovs were executed in 1917, so 1914 we're like 3 years away. So we'll stop at World War I today, and then we'll go back next week, look at Nicholas II, all that kind of stuff. Then we'll lead up to the execution and the conspiracy over Anastasia. We'll look at that last. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, I hope you all enjoyed our education class today, and I hope you all learned a lot. Don't tell your kids what happens on the show.
No, tell your kids when they have to write a paper about Russian history. Just be like, they liked wieners. They're not wrong. They can't fail because they're not wrong. They can show pictures of Catherine's furniture and Rasputin's pickled talawaki. They're not wrong. They can't fail that paper. They're not wrong.
Exactly. So they'll get it right. They'll get it right. looking at the real things in life. Oh wow. Okay.
It's all about the
everybody. Yay! Thank you so much for joining us on this marvelous Monday. And we shall see you. Okay, let me just give you a rundown of this week's schedule. Tomorrow is Tuesday, and then we have Jessica Jones, the Cryptid Huntress again. Looking forward to her. Wednesday, double dose Jessie, and then Bryce in the afternoon, evening. We're doing again the Mormons and Mormons behaving badly. I think that's what the show should be called, Mormons behaving badly. And then Thursday, Caleb, as well as the Australian survivor overcomer. His name is Danny Adams. Just trying to find my diary, yeah. And then Friday night, we have John Perkins, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And then Saturday, Jerry Marzinski. Sunday, Caleb. Thursday, Caleb. Sunday, Patreon book club with Jessie. The schedule is up on all the shows, on Facebook, on Patreon, all of that. So yeah, check it out. And yay, join us. It's going to be a fun week full of all sorts of nice things. Okay, guys. Love you madly. Mwah.
Bye, guys.
Take good care of yourselves, and we shall see you. Hey, wait, hang on. Let me just find my exit here.
Don't forget to get a spooky too.
Yeah, don't forget to get a spooky too. Spooky too. Fabulous machines. Really, really fabulous machines. They really do their job. That's for sure. Okay, guys. I'm just trying to still find my exit strategy. Yeah.
We might be sitting here all day just
smiling. Bye. See you later.